Gumba Malgan, Gumba Nini Gia Nindu, which is good evening. It's good to see you here this evening. And that is in the Burragum language, which is the community that I grew up on, the Darling Downs. And next year is the International Year of Indigenous Languages. And I've made a commitment to my staff, and particularly the Indigenous Languages Project staff here, that I'll learn more at traditional languages by next year. The International Year of Indigenous Languages will also provide the opportunity for State Library to profile the really important work that we're doing in the revival, documentation and preservation of traditional languages. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Vicky McDonald, and it's my great privilege to be the State Librarian and CEO of the State Library of Queensland, and it's also my privilege to welcome you here this evening for tonight's Game Changers event, which is the first of our series for 2018. I also extend a very warm welcome to those people who are watching us from their comfort of their lounge rooms, I suspect, via our live stream this evening. But let me also begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of this land and pay respects to the ancestors who came before them. The State Library of Queensland is located on Kurilpa Point, which is a traditional meeting, gathering and sharing place for Aboriginal people, and we proudly continue that tradition today and every day of the year. I'd also like to acknowledge and welcome, of course, our speaker for tonight, and I think the great draw card for the fantastic crowd that we have tonight, entrepreneur Steve Baxter, Ray Weeks, Chairman of the CEO Institute and our facilitator for this evening, members of the Library Board of Queensland, the Queensland Library Foundation Council, QUT Business School, the Queensland Business Leaders Hall of Fame Governing Committee, and also a special welcome to our donors and partners, Pitcher Partners, Channel 7, Morgans, NAB and RACQ. And of course, a warm welcome to all our friends and supporters who are here this evening. Thank you for joining us tonight as we launch Game Changers, the conversation series for 2018. This event celebrates the innovative mind and the will to succeed. It brings together the mavericks, the risk takers from across business, technology and the creative industries. At State Library, we want to inspire possibilities through knowledge, stories and creativity. And the business leaders who will take centre stage this year are nothing short of inspirational. Game Changers is an initiative of the Queensland Business Leaders Hall of Fame. And the Business Leaders Hall of Fame was established in 2009 by the State Library of Queensland, the Queensland Library Foundation and the QUT Business School. The Hall of Fame celebrates, records and retells Queensland's outstanding business leaders and their stories of what they've achieved. Their contributions have helped shape the very fabric of our state. One of our signature annual events is the Queensland Business Leaders Hall of Fame Induction Dinner, which celebrates its 10th anniversary this year. And at the dinner, we will honour a new cohort of Queensland's business leaders. And those who attend will have the chance to network with distinguished guests and leaders of the Queensland business community. You can purchase tickets for this 19th of July dinner on the Hall of Fame website, and I've seen the slides going through this evening, so you would have seen the website and there's the details there as well. So if you're live streaming this evening, you can tweet your questions, and we're using the hashtag QBLHOF. And don't forget to tag your location so we know where you're viewing from this evening as well. So those of you who are in the audience, feel free to tweet your questions as well, or you can hold on to them to the Q&A session at the end of the conversation. They'll actually come up on the screen here, so Ray will be able to see them. Ray and Steve will answer as many questions as possible at the end of the conversation. But just a reminder, as we are recording this evening's conversation, we've locked the front doors, so if you need to escape early, you'll need to go up through the doors at the back onto level 3. I'd now like to welcome our facilitator for this evening, Ray Weeks, to the stage, and he'll introduce Steve as well. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Good evening. Welcome to the first of our Game Changers events for this year. Now this is where, as you know, most of you know this, we get close and personal with some of Australia's leading entrepreneurs. And we're about to get up close and personal with a major Australian investor, entrepreneur and television personality, Steve Baxter, which can be courageous for a whole range of reasons, including the fact that you know him as one of the sharks on the TV series Shark Tank. And I think there's a couple of entrepreneurs in the audience here tonight who were savaged by Steve on Shark Tank and they want to get back at him. Some state of redemption. Steve Baxter was born in Rockhampton, raised in Emerald and went to school in Rockhampton. Leaving school at 15, he joined the army where he became an engineer, working in electronics, telecoms and guided weapons systems. At the age of 23, he put his life savings on the line to launch his first startup. It was an internet service provider, SENet, from the spare room of his home. Servicing more than 35,000 customers, SENet was acquired by Aussie Mail and one of its founding directors was Malcolm Turnbull. In 2001, Steve teamed up with a schoolmate and another leading entrepreneur, and that's Bevan Slattery, to launch his second startup, Pipe Networks. 7 years later, he moved to California to join Google as technical program manager to deliver high-speed telecommunication systems right across the US. He remained a non-executive director of Pipe Networks until it was later sold to TPG in 2010 for $373 million. Now, Steve Baxter founded River City Labs in 2012. This is a leading community to encourage Queensland entrepreneurs. And in 2014, he became a major early-stage investor in Australian startups. And in 2015, he started up and funded the Catalyst program in which 20 young Queenslanders with potential to be the next globally successful tech entrepreneurs are sent to San Francisco to be immersed in the startup culture. And so in 2014, as you know, he became a shark on Shark Tank, and last year he became Queensland's chief entrepreneur, the second of Queensland's chief entrepreneurs. Now, to infect you with his particular contagion and the startup contagious disease, please welcome Steve Baxter. Now, Steve, if you were interviewing yourself, what's the first question you'd ask?
Well, I'm not a very good employee, so and I've got no real advice in that area. I don't have these great one-liners and these amazing insights. I usually ask the person what job they think they're applying for. Because what they think they're applying for, what we think they've applied for, and what they'll be doing are two different things. So we want a right way. If they're not there for the right job, or they're understanding what they're doing is wrong, we just end it now and get out. Just save the time. Right. So I'm very practical. No witty bits of insight there, I'm afraid. Ray, even after you gave me a week to think about it, I still couldn't think of something good.
So let's go through your personal journey for a minute. Tell us about your life, starting out, growing up in a remote Queensland town, leaving school at the age of 15, joining the army. So take us through, what was your dream at that age?
Oh.
And take us through some of your big highlights.
Well, I was born in Cloncurry. I'm very proud Queensland, very immensely proud Australian, very proud Queensland. I carry a rifle for this country, so you know I regard myself as an Australian. And second, I regard myself as either a soldier or an ex-soldier. So that informs so much about that and my story, to be honest. I don't, childhood's great. You don't remember the bad times, and I've learnt that mum and dad. I knew we weren't the wealthiest people in town. No one was really wealthy back then, to be honest. And you think about what we did back then, it's just what happened. I didn't realise we were eating poverty food, if you know what I mean. So not that you know it looking at me, but I was born in Cloncurry. Don't remember too much. I left there when I was 10 months old, or so I've been told. I don't recall that at all. Moved to Rockhampton, to Emerald to Rockhampton. Dad was in Queensland Rail, and so the family had a very strong work ethic. Mum's dad was a coal miner, so we lived in. I loved Central Queensland. So from the moment I was exceptionally young, I recall wanting to be a soldier for some stupid reason, and I was given the chance at 15 years old to go and do that. Before I'd been accepted, I actually finished year 11. I started school quite young. I started school very early, 4-year-old. There was no prep back then either, right? So you can picture that. And I didn't do that well in grade 11. I just went to the senior headmistress, whatever they call them in schools, and basically I was 15, therefore I could actually make the decision to leave school. My parents weren't involved, and I made that decision. I didn't tell mum and dad because I didn't know how to do that. And then I got the phone call from the Army saying, hey, do you want to join up? I said, yep, I'm there, I'm all good. And then...
They trained you as an engineer there?
Well, so it was an apprentice. It was an Army apprenticeship scheme. Yeah. They stopped that they stopped it at the 40. They stopped it 7 years after I joined. There's an apprentice in the audience tonight too, a vehicle mechanic. Sorry about that, wherever you are. You can't help bad luck. Basically, if we couldn't tell shitty tin pot African countries, they couldn't recruit 15-year-olds. We couldn't recruit them either. So, child soldier issue, which is good, right? As a parent now, I can't believe we recruited 15-year-olds. So, but I was an apprentice. I was my trade in the Army was they're called Technician Electronic Systems Ground, or Jack of all trades and master of none. So I did electronics, and we did everything except radio, radar, and avionics. That included compasses and binoculars, optics, telescopes. But I did a radiation protection course at Lucas Heights, which was fascinating. We got to wear civvies for 2 weeks, which is always fun, and grow beards. That's always fun. Again, I got to stare into the reactor core, from a safe distance away, obviously. I'm pretty sure it was safe. I did courses on switchboards, and I did the two air defence missiles at the time, the Vocus RBS-70 and the British Rapier, which are fantastic systems for killing pilots. Yeah. So, and I really enjoyed it. There was just no wars. I would have stayed. If we were fighting wars at the time, I would have stayed. I would have loved to have gone and deployed overseas, to be honest. Was there a moment around this time that you had a clear direction on your work? No, not at all. Not at all? Not that I recall. Military exercise is really boring. You go out there and you don't do much. You take books, you read books, and you finish those books. You'll move, you dig a hole, you read another book. You'll move, you dig a hole, you read another book. Some blokes were doing part-time external university. And I didn't finish year 11, but I went and sat my QTAC, which is still cool. QTAC, that blows me away. And got my little year 12 equivalent thing. Did a full-time external AD associate diploma out of Rockhampton University, as it turns out, or CQU at the time, as it turns out, because that's the only place that offered full-time external. That was just coincidence. Upgraded that to a computing degree, and just did a couple of one subject a semester or something like that, enough to keep me busy out bush. So you handed over your life savings to launch your first startup. Yep, it gets worse than that. It gets worse than that. So I was going to a computer user group meeting in Adelaide for this weird thing called Linux. This is back when it came on 110 floppy disks. So, and that night we'd actually got a system configured. We'd actually got the X Windows system, what we all know is just a windowing system nowadays. It comes up with a blue screen and a mouse cursor, and you think you're a hero. It was around because if you got X Windows configuration wrong, you could literally destroy the monitor. You have to actually manually program your refresh settings. Your monitor could actually shatter the tube on your monitor. It happened a couple of times. So, and that were expensive things. So I looked over someone's shoulder, and we had the Mosaic browser going at the time, and I instantly knew the world was going to change. So I hadn't even, by the time I deployed that $11,000, I hadn't even used a web browser, hadn't configured a modem, and on Linux. I'd done it on DOS. I'd done it on Linux, and I thought, it can't be that hard, surely. And it turns out it wasn't. So I taught myself a lot of stuff, got in and spent some money, installed 14 phone lines into an Army married quarter. It wasn't my house, it was the Army's house. Didn't ask for permission because I knew they'd say no, so it was a wasted conversation. And when I handed that house back, actually, so I got out, that was in November 94, I got out in September 95, had to hand that house back. And they sent like this old retired warrant officer down to do like a house inspection, like a room inspection. He checks for dust. It's like, oh man, I'm getting out, I can't get in trouble. So I think I was actually out at that stage too, so he couldn't exactly discipline me. And he's like, what's all this? And I just left the phone lines on the wall. Oh, they were there and we got here. So the place was mostly tidy, left me alone. We moved next door, which is like a really weird thing to do. We moved next door because the house for sale was next door. Right. And the people over the road owned it, and they were trying to sell it. They told us the minimum they'd take for it. They're going to advertise it for $210, but they'll take $150. Right. So we gave them $150, obviously. But the reason it was next door was because it was actually one step closer to the exchange. It was going to cost me $110 a line to relocate my phone lines, but I didn't do that. I just literally cut them off, dug it up myself, and because there was slack, I could take it that way, right? And I re-terminated it inside the house. So it saved me about $4,000. So. In 1995, well, this is, it's probably like $10,000 nowadays. That was 30% of your startup investment. Yeah, you did right. So tell us about that startup, the first startup, your investment there. Yeah, a company called SCNet. We were geniuses. We thought of the name because my name is Steve and my wife's Emily, so that's about how much genius we put into that name. People said, "Are you South East Net?" We're like, yeah, we're South East Net. Great business. We started in a suburban house in Adelaide, moved next door to we started in a suburb in Adelaide in a couple of houses. I left the army I just started that business in '94. Didn't really take off when I first started, November '94. Didn't really take off. I managed to get a year's leave without pay, a month's leave without pay from the army in May the following year. And it just went crazy. And I went back to my unit and I said to my boss, I've done this. And everyone knew I was doing it. They had accounts, they were trying to get their kids to use it and stuff. And I said, look, it's really going off and I've got to get out. You could sort of, so I was due to get out the following January on my 9-year. So yeah, what's worse than recruiting a 15-year-old? Signing up for 9 years when you're 15. So there's a big life decision for you. And I said, get up, and the chap's name is Stephen Phillips, Major Phillips. I forgot his first name now, that's terrible. I never thought I'd forget that because he gave me my start. I went there and said, I've got to get out, and at our unit we had an establishment, so we had slots for 6 of my trade. I was the only person there, and because of manpower shortages, and he's like, we're the air defence unit for Australia, we can't let you go, which was a fair statement. But he said, look, there's a big exercise coming up in a couple of months, and if you're a good boy, I'll recommend you early discharge, which is the best I could hope for. And it turns out that I was recommended for discharge 2 days into that exercise accidentally. He meant to put draft paperwork in and they just processed it. So he came and showed me my discharge and said, we had the deal that you'd stay around until the end of the exercise type of thing. And yeah, I'm good, boss. I'll play the game.
So SCNet, that's bought by
so we had
Aussie
we had 65 staff when they bought it. It had 17,000 customers when they bought it. We sold it. It did in 2 tranches, only about 14 months apart.
Right.
By the time we sold it, it had 35,000 customers. I sold it because we were dead scared of Telstra. Telstra, it's shocking to be in an industry where your largest supplier is your largest competitor. It's a horrible place to be. And I just had to take some chips off the table. And that was
so Bevan Slattery, pipe.
Yeah, so moved back
networks.
excuse me, moved back to Brisbane in 2001. This is how I know I'm a bad employee. I got a job with APT programming routers. I started on the day before September 11, when the world sort of changed after that day as a point of reference. And I was there 14 weeks and I just got the shits. It was horrible. Big companies are dumb. Bevan and I went to school together in Rockhampton. Our mums are best friends. We met up a couple of times. He had an idea which really didn't fly in the end, and I ended up sort of radically, from my experience in the ISP space, I knew it wouldn't work. And so we ended up throwing $70,000 each in the hat, modifying it because his plan needed $2 million and it was honestly not going to fly. So we had a national plan. We had to start local. That was probably the bigger thing. And yeah, we started as Pipe. It actually stood for Public IP Exchange. So we're a wholesale clearinghouse for wholesale telecoms connections. A very wonkish wholesale service, effectively. Easy to sell if you knew what it was, because if you knew what it was, you wanted it. Then we figured out that in order to actually make that business really sing, we needed high-speed connectivity between buildings in Brisbane, and so we tried to buy dark fibre from carriers, and they wouldn't sell it to us. And in fact, they were quite dishonourable in their sales process. So we ended up building our own. So our competitors enabled us in the end. So we ended up building our own dark fibre, and that's beautiful. On second line sales, you can only make more gross margin by selling cocaine. It is that profitable. Literally, you have the customer pay for the first, so you'll put a 288 core cable in, or let's say a 72 core cable in. You'll sell customer 2, you have 70 units left to sell, and it's fully paid for. You're making profit off the next one. So literally, your next sale is 99% gross margin.
So 9 years later, you sell it to TPG.
Yep.
How does it feel to make? How does your life change with $373 million?
Well, I wish it was all mine. It wasn't all mine. So we had 1,000 other shareholders in that deal as well. Bevan and I were vastly the largest shareholders in the register. So you can look up what that number is. I'm not going to say it out loud. Look, it's a life-changing moment, to be honest. So you look at your bank account. It's like, whoa, where'd that come from? And we'd probably taken, over the years, we'd done some capital raisings, and we'd taken about $3 million, maybe $4 million off the table over those sort of intervening sort of 8 years. Sure. But I mean, so we started in 01, did really well. We got lots of traction. We did our first external capital raising in 2004, November 2004, we raised $500,000 on a $5 million number. We were forecasting to have $900,000 net profit after tax, not EBITDA or EBIT, some other bullshit pretend tax, but after you pay the tax man. We stuffed up. We ended up having 1.4 mil the following June 30, and we raised a 5 mil number. So when startups come to me and have all these fanciful valuations, I'm like, dude, you know, that's my concept of valuation is informed from my past. We raised money then. We raised $3.5 million the following May on, I want to say it was a post. It was about 12 or 13 mil number. I can't quite remember. And then it was a 40-cent share price. Then 3 weeks later, we had a $1 party down the Pig and Whistle, because that's where you have parties in, you know, bottom Eagle Street. We got to $4.80. Yeah. We planned this awesome submarine cable between Sydney and Guam. And the biggest experience there is if you're going to do that, then don't do it 6 months before the GFC, right? Because that was, you know, we'd spent about $40 million, I think, in debt and equity, and literally all the customers just disappeared. The bankers fired the people we were doing. We had no interfaces back to the banks, and the whole project was just up in the air, and we'd spent all this money, and that would have been a big hit for the company. So the share price went from $4.80 down to $1.80, and we started an action to, you know, work with. Look at our corporate options, which is bullshit speak for please someone come and buy us and save us, right? We used Macquarie, well it was. We used Macquarie, and then, you know, within probably 14 months the share price was back to about $5.90, and David Teo gave us the offer for $6.30. So we raised, over the life of that business, we raised $90 million in equity, and I want to say it was about $40 million in debt. Amazing experience.
So based on that experience, what do you know about yourself now you didn't know then?
I'm really poor at the big questions. Your first question was a deep question. I had no good answer for it. I'm
going to keep asking this question.
Yeah, no, good. No, I'd like to have better answers for it, because I sit there and go, I don't know. I'm a guy who's at the coalface. When you're at the coalface working, you swing the axe harder. Yeah. Right. And we swing the hoe harder. Right. Get the coal out. So, yeah, probably if I had one thing in my entire career, I haven't stepped back and taken a big enough strategic look at things. I'm better at the coalface. I enjoy building teams. I enjoy building operations manuals. How sad's that? But it is, because to me, when you employ people, and when you get on the Google questions, this will come through loud and clear. When you employ people, I think it's a win if they turn up at 8 or 9 in the morning, whenever they start, and they get to 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and they go, oh shit, I've got to leave. And they've had this amazingly fulfilling day. If your day's gone fast, it's usually very fulfilling, right? Right. And you do that because you know what you're doing, and you know how to impress the boss. And to me, it's a manual. It also means you can go on holidays and you can get hit by a bus and all the things that happen in life. Okay, and you're not going to be business critical.
So come to Google. You're in California. You deliver this project, high-speed telecommunications, right across the US. What were your big learnings from that experience that does really continue to drive your thinking as an entrepreneur?
What I was, that rich companies can be very, very dumb with money.
Okay.
American companies throw people at problems, and that's just disgraceful. For as much as you want full employment, you just don't want busy work employment, which is what we probably saw at Google. But they were exceptionally rich company, and we're in the red-headed bastard stepchild part of the organisation too, which didn't help. So I tell entrepreneurs now who want to emulate Google, you do that when you have $16 billion a quarter in revenue. You can do that until you just don't look at a single thing they do, because it is so disgracefully wasteful. I witnessed internal surveys that talked about employee satisfaction, where out of 10, where the first one was, I get the free bus to work, there's free food, I can bring the dog, I can do the laundry at work. George Clooney turns up twice a year and does a talk. Number 6 or 7 or 8 was like, oh yeah, my job's okay. And you're like, oh, what? How does that work? As a concept, that's just wrong. And they were trying to get that down to like number 5 or 6 instead of 6 or 7. I'm like, that should be number 1 or 2, right? So for me, it's about that fulfilled working day. You want to come to work and want to achieve something. I had 4 project managers at Pipe in Brisbane. I had 29 in Google and got nothing done. Nothing done. The stories I could tell you would curl your toes.
Give us one curl toe story.
And not get sued. Let me think. So I get there the first morning. Not the first morning. It was. So you have a week of induction. So it must have been the first Monday of the second week, basically. And I get pulled in this meeting, sort of saying, we've got a problem. We can't find some gear. I said, oh, no worries. What sort of gear? I said, it's about $90 million worth of computer stuff. And this is where I learned that Americans are very overtly polite. And like, fucking what? And they stare at me. And we haven't eaten breakfast in this meeting. And they're staring at me. I'm like, geez, I've dropped something on myself. What's it like? And I'm gone, what the fuck have I dropped? And I learned then that swearing was a very useful tool in an American company because it meant emphasis. You just don't do it occasionally. The F-bomb got you through, and I think I dropped the atomic one, if you know what I mean, once or twice as well for fire for effect. But can you help us track $90 million worth of stuff? It's like it's not quite, it's not quite material. And what they're doing was they were on their data, and their pops are really good. They've got like multiple cards, multiple routers. So if something fails, they can literally fly to it tomorrow and fix it. So the guy would fly out, and they think it's this card that's broken. So he'd fly out with 2 just in case, and a couple of spares to troubleshoot. No, whereas put it in there, couldn't be stuffed. He'd just leave it. These cards are $100,000 each. He'd just leave them and walk out. Wouldn't even lock the cage. And big companies are done with money. That's probably the most friendly one I've got, to be honest, because they did a lot of dumb shit.
You're a strong believer in empowering young people. Setting them free, as you talk about it, Steve, to self-learn, to invent things, to experiment. Right, what skills do you think? There's a number of young people in the audience. What skills do you think young people need to succeed as entrepreneurs? Critical thinking skills? What? How to fail? I mean, what?
So if I want to go wind back a little bit from that, so I talk at schools. I enjoy it probably twice a month on average. I'll go to a school and talk talk to kids. There's a lot of parents and teachers there as well. I get asked a lot about, what do we do to make our kids more resilient? I'm like, what have you done to steal that resilience from children? I mean, I grew up in Cloncurry. We're the people from Australia. We tore prosperity from this ground. And all of a sudden, we're now trying to understand why our kids don't have resilience. So, as a brand new dad, that concerns the hell out of me. So, stop. Let our kids fail. Let them fall over. There's a saying now that Canadian psychologists, don't interrupt kids when they're skateboarding. Just let them fall over. What's the worst they can do? Bang themselves up. They've got to learn. Right. So I think you can't teach a lesson of resilience. You've just got to let them hurt themselves. So that's right at the start. When it comes more into that. You've got to. I enjoy working with people with the correct business ethic, which is really hard to discover. You've got to want to work beside them. Investments it's a long period of time. So if we're going to sit there for 8 or 10 years while we work through this investment, I've got to like you, and I've got to not think you're a crook. That's a good thing. Please don't be crooks. Then they have to have the appropriate technical skills for what they're doing, and not be led to some crazy, crappy belief that you can get through the technical skills that you need, because you just can't. It's wrong. It fails every time, and if you think you can, you're wrong. And prefer the young ones, right? And sorry, the old people out there. I'm sure you'll come and get me afterwards. You always do, because to be honest, young people typically have more personal runway. Don't have a partner, 2 kids, and a mortgage, right? That's really important. They actually need room to experiment. So typically here, right? And they don't know shit's impossible. Old people, no, it won't work. Oh, that won't work. Oh, free taxi rides, that won't work. Or private cars as taxis. They'll experiment. So they're not atrophied and sort of cynical. Am I answering your question?
Imagination, yeah, of course, you're getting that. Yeah. The imagination's not well developed, right, with the younger people. So is that part of it, or?
I think the imagination's super developed with younger people.
Good.
So I think it's been lost on older people.
Okay.
But we're just, we've seen it done before. We've seen it fail. We probably get a little cynical. Once again, I'm talking about probably an average population from my perspective, because every perspective is different.
So in the Startup Catalyst program for young entrepreneurs, this is a big part of your life.
Look, if everything else I've done in that sort of crazy social entrepreneurship space burns down and Catalyst lives, I'll be the happiest man alive. Yeah. So we started. I got really tired of being pitched by clueless entrepreneurs, so tech clueless entrepreneurs. You hear about these good ideas, and you go, well, that's actually not a bad idea. What's your background? Oh, I'm a bus driver, or a Macquarie banker, or a ferry boat driver, or something. I don't know. Yeah, they're all honourable professions. I'm not saying they're not, right? I think all labour has immense value, but they have no capability to deliver on what they're talking about. And I'm like, well, okay, so if I invest in you, what are you going to do with it? Oh, I'm going to get that bloke over there, and he's going to build it for me. Well, I'm going to talk to that bloke over there, not you, because you have no value in this equation at all. And I got tired of that conversation, so I thought, well, I did River City Labs because I got tired of complaining. I honestly believe, and I'm a huge whinger, but I believe I buy my right to complain and whinge. So with River City Labs, I buy my right to complain and whinge. With Startup Catalyst, I want to actually find a bunch of people who are going to be the next Brins, Zuckerbergs, and all the technical co-founders out there. None of these non-tech sort of businessy people. And take them, and when we find them in Australia, they're typically working on these small, crappy, small horizon, very local Australian problems. Take them over to this frenetic sort of ecosystem, and amazing place, Northern California, Silicon Valley, and just show what's going on.
So you take 20 over, you bring them back.
So the idea was, and the actual initial working name for this thing was Startup Ebola. So I thought, well, how do I get across what I do? I want to take 20 Australians over there and infect them with this infectious thing and bring them back, and they can run around and infect others, right? And so Startup Ebola, we had the T-shirts and everything. And then 14 weeks before the program left, Ebola broke out in America. We thought, no, probably won't be good at customs, right? So, and I think Startup Catalyst is a lot better name. But that's what we want to do. It's about infecting people. It's about change and
getting others to infect others
and bring them over. And we've not just doing. That's our flagship program. We take 20 young techies. Techies, it's just got to be something really, really technical. We took a neuroscientist surgeon. No, it must have been a neuroscientist last time. Everything from entry-level web through to mechatronics through to neuroscience, because that's very applicable in AI and all sorts of stuff nowadays. We also do we've done missions to Israel, London. I took 11 investors to San Fran last year, and we've activated quite a few of those in that space. So we went to see the VCs, whereas the young kids, we take them to see Google and Twitter and Facebook and data centers and blah blah this and coffee shops and pubs. And the investors, we do pubs and investors and VCs and pubs. And the funded startups, well, we just did a program to London for London Tech Week, which is an amazing week in London. So they took about 13 over for that. So Startup Catalyst it's outbound cultural transformation.
Come back to the moral compass.
Yep.
That's important to you, your ethical framework, and you want to see that in others. Just explain how you see that moral compass.
So there's a saying in the army called Jack. Who's been in the army? If you've been in the army, you know the saying called Jack. The worst thing in the world to be called is Jack. It's a stab to the heart, and it tears your spine out at the same time. And it basically means that you're just a turd of a person, right? And unless you've experienced that, you won't participate. You won't help the group out as the group. You won't pull your weight in some respects, I suppose. There's a lot of it. I mean, Jack guys are the guys who get hand grenades thrown down the back of their shirt in combat, right? So, and I look. It's weird, but you look at that. Would this person be a Jack person or not? And they're quite rare, to be honest. But you see that, and so a lot of my makeup is set from sometime after I joined the army, I became a digger. And it's really curious. You just don't become a digger when you join up, right? At some point afterwards, you get what it's all about, and you become a digger, as far as I'm concerned. And then after that, I was an ex-digger, and I'll die an ex-digger. So you've just got to find that right. And not everyone has to qualify for the military. I'm not saying that either. But you've just got to be a nice person, not a turd. So and I've been in meetings with turds, and they're horrible meetings. So
where did you get your values from? Where did your values come from? Was there a family background?
I imagine. At 15, I was a bit too young to recall that. I mean, on your third day at work, when you get headbutted by a drill sergeant, you've come into a pretty serious environment. You learn not to talk back. Let me tell you. So look, I think my basic core values, and I hope I'm polite. I might come across as a bit honest at times. I hope I come across as more honest than angry. But politeness is big in the family as a kid, which I think is awesome. So, very working class family. Mum, she studied. She finished year 10. She put herself through high school, then put herself through university when we were kids. Became a social worker. Dad was Queensland Rail. Took a voluntary early redundancy in sort of probably mid-90s, I want to say. And they've travelled from. They love travelling around and living in small towns. They lived in Alice for about 3 years. They lived in Katherine for about Katherine in the Northern Territory for 8 or 9 years. But Cloncurry, Emerald, all sorts of places. Exceptionally left family. I'm the only person not far radical union. That left, I was going to say some more expletives. So the barbecues suck. Let me tell you, I'm just sitting going, love them all, but their politics are terrible.
Now let's get to the chief office of the entrepreneur, or the office of the chief entrepreneur. What do you hope to achieve in that role? Is there a legacy you're looking for here?
I hope it can turn into a legacy. I mean, we've only got it for a year. It's hard to set a legacy in a year.
So
right?
What do you want to achieve?
It's a very, I think it's a very generous role from government. I think at times I wish they didn't give it to me, but so they let you set your goals for the year. Mark Selby, who was the first chief entrepreneur, did a fantastic job. He had some things he wanted to get done. I think he did them fantastically. They asked me, and I said, well, I want to take the message of enterprise entrepreneurship out of Brisbane. And I don't want to use the term regions, because regions just stares down their nose at people, right, as if you're some sort of subhuman piece of filth out in the regions. It's not that. You just live in a different part of Queensland. You find when you're in business, you want to do this. You want to network. You want to meet. Except when you're in Blackwater, you've got the same 5 butchers, bakers, candlestick makers in the same room. So we've been taking, and I've used my own aircraft. I don't get paid for this. Rach has been. She vomited on a couple of trips. That was pretty funny. We go to all these places because you can do 4 towns in 2 days if you take your private air. Otherwise, it's going to take you a lot longer, or you do less. So we go out there. We take all these people from the southeast Queensland corner. We put on events. We go to schools. We talk. We just take a different perspective out. We listen to them. They listen to us. Hopefully the people we take will take that back to George Street and talk to people down here. We'll get some gradual change. So getting outside of the southeast Queensland corner. Capital. We've got an issue with capital in Queensland. So we need to enable more capital. There's no shortage of rich people. We've just got to get them deployed. So we've been up and down on these trips up and down the coast. We've enabled 2 angel groups or 3 angel groups, Rach, I want to say now. I can't recall. For 5, there you go. Even more than that. That's awesome. So we just literally, I go there and talk to some amazingly, interestingly wealthy people, far more wealthy than I am, and it's like, and you just, it's almost like you give them permission. You go through what you do and how you do it, and it's like they're like, oh, okay, it's that easy, is it? I might start looking at that. So that angel group, that early, which is very early stage capital, we're looking at some stuff, and we've done some bridging stuff with wholesale investor through the Office of Chief Entrepreneur. We've got startups access to an investment network with 17,000 high net worth individuals in there. If you're a Queensland company, instead of 10 grand to access this service. Now I've had 5 startups go for that service. They all report value at 10 grand. We negotiated them down for a bulk rate in Queensland for 2 grand. So it's really good. It's what I call the bridging capital. And we're working on something called the Venture Visitor Program, where we're going to get these mid-level VC operatives from Death Star VC firms out of Silicon Valley to come and live here for 6 months and just operate and tell us what the hell we're doing wrong. The telecoms network, so this state owns about 6,000 route kilometres of telecommunications fibre that's unused. We could be the most bandwidth drunk state in the world if the government just got off its arse and deployed it. And so that's what I've been doing. So it's called the Backhaul Project. We've been working on it for 16 months. It should have taken 6. That's government. And I urge you, there's something called Steve Baxter's Backhaul Project. And Bevan had an input to this in the early days as well. He got excluded because he's going to be probably a commercial protagonist, which is fair enough as a conflict. Ask politicians about it. Where is it? It's the most simple project. It's the biggest project since we paved the bloody roads. And it's sitting there waiting, and it'll be exceptionally cheap to put in place. It's just the public servants are just being public servants. So I'm sorry, but you're all very nice people, but as a uniform group, you're bloody useless and unproductive.
You're going to be able to get out of here, right?
And then I say this a lot. Flying cars. Yeah. So we spend $7 billion a year, every year, on building new roads and improving roads. And at the end of that process, they suck just a little bit less for all that money, right? And we're killing people on these things. By 2023, LA is going to have a working flying car. So literally, like if you imagine a drone, a big drone that you can put 2 people in, it'll go up. It's electric, it's pretty quiet, probably about as noisy as a loud truck, and it'll fly someone off at 120 kilometres an hour. Dallas and Dubai are going to have one by 2030. I raise this as this is my big, hairy, audacious goal. Like we should do flying cars. Because the rest of the world is going to do it. Well, we can bang our heads in the sand and say, oh, it won't work, it's dangerous. For 10 years after that, we'll have 10 years of lost treasure, because we can divert some fraction of that $7 billion into just not doing it, because we don't need it anymore. They're up there. Do you know how many cars you can fit in a cubic kilometre of airspace, separated by 50 metres? How far are you separated by a closing vehicle right now on the freeway? 2?
So start reducing.
I'm going to set around by 50 metres. 4,000 cars in a cubic kilometre of airspace.
So start reducing your road infrastructure spend and start getting here. Look, you just get the
flying
channel.
Cars. Ask for your flying cars.
Channel 10's Shark Tank. Just want to get the Shark Tank series for a minute. It's changed your investment intuition from taking months to form an initial assessment about an entrepreneur to these days taking a few minutes, a matter of minutes. I mean, what understandings does the Shark Tank program give you?
Well, we don't actually do it in a matter of minutes. We say we do, we don't.
Beforehand,
The guy comes on tonight, 8:40 tonight, Channel 10 it's on, just after MasterChef. Go home and watch that. But he brings in, like, he's a vodka seller, so he brings all this vodka and gets us pissed as mutes. And, it's pretty funny. I don't usually drink spirits, so, you know, I'm probably drinking, that night I probably drank 3 times as much vodka that night as I drink ever before, which still wasn't much, and so I was just laughable. So get us drunk. No. We have about 40 minutes to about an hour and 10 with an entrepreneur. Right. If it looks like I'm hanging a bit rough, I'm really trying to understand their reaction to how they're going to work with me, so I'd like to know that. We finished filming that back in March. We've closed 2 deals. We did 8 on air. I think we definitely transferred the cash for 1. I think we're in the process of doing the second one. We may do 1 other after that, and we've probably still got about 6 weeks worth of DD to do on that business. So we spend a lot of time with them afterwards, and the rest have just self-selected out.
So has it changed your thinking about the way you deal with other startups, or not?
We're a lot more brutal in how we actually cull the crop now.
Right.
Like literally, like if you don't have a computerized accounting system that you can, when you run the same report 2 seconds apart, gives you the same answer. Yeah. Then you're done. We're not going to fix that shit for you. You know, if you've got personal expenses sprayed through your business, you're done. If you've materially lied to us, you're done. And I'm okay with sexing things up. Bit of puffery. There's a legal term, puffery. If you've been through the courts, that sort of stuff, you know about it. But when it's an out-and-out lie, we draw the line there. Okay. So yeah, there's a lot of. It's probably giving us more black, more sort of black lines as soon as you cross it.
So what's your burning desire now? What's your central purpose in life? What really drives you?
The front cover of my Android. Has anyone seen me do this before? Probably have. I do it all the time. But the front cover of my Android.
This has got what?
The companies that own the icons. This is not going that way or that way. This is just not swiping left or swiping right. But this is just the front cover of this one, right? And these stats are from my old one, but this is as an example. The companies that own those icons, March last year, I haven't done it since, were worth $2.6 trillion and employed 540,000 people. Now, I'm buying this as a service. This is export dollars going away from Australia, right? If that was an iPhone, add a trill and 120,000 people. ASX on a good day, 1.7 trill. This is where all of our treasures going. This is where all the growth, this is where all the high capacity, scalable jobs are going. And as soon as people start to get that, I was at an ASEAN lunch, say Tuesday, yesterday, and they were talking about trade barriers and non-trade barriers and this and non-technical this, and I'm like, it's so last 10 years ago commerce. In the Apple App Store in 2014, there were 540 million non-defaulting credit cards, all accessible without a tariff, without a barrier, without a ship to put cargo on. That is what we need. I love traditional business. I love the mines. I love the farms. I love coal. Bring thermal coal on. At least the lights will stay on. I love uranium. I love any honest business. I love the rule of law most importantly, right? So I think all labour has dignity, but this is where the big jobs of the future are. I want us to do all of it, but that's where I want to focus.
Look at the last 10 years. The top 10 companies in the States. I think 5 of them started in the last 10 years, right? Yep. In Australia, what's the youngest company in the top 10 in Australia? Woolworths, 1948.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Woolies.
1948.
We had a top 100. I was at Vocus top 100, then we sort of fell out of that in a hurry because we stuffed things up pretty bad. But
that's right. So, look, what's your definition of success?
For me, I think it's when I used to say when I look out the window and I see brand new buildings in the cities. I'm on the Fortitude Valley side, which I think is the cooler side of town anyway. I look out there and I see a building with a weird name on it, like a Yahoo style name, or WZ or some cool techie name. Probably some name without vowels, because they don't do vowels nowadays in these names. And that recognising it employs like 3,000 or 4,000 people. 3,000 or 4,000 people being paid probably 5 times the average wage. So these people in these businesses are paid between 150 and 250 grand, and it's all people, right? These businesses, their expense base is probably 65% labour, and that's people, right? And what they produce people from overseas buy us. That's an export, right? We don't actually put stuff on ships, but still, so we don't need a port or a railway line or then sort of carry on. We can do it from Townsville. Do the regional stuff. The amazing business out of Townsville called Safety Culture, brilliant. This guy should be here, not me, because he's a real businessman. Luke Anea, he's done an amazing business out of Townsville. So, I mean, this is what you can do, and this is why I'm banging about the fibre network up the coast, because you're not going to truly get that until you be able to do
This is the company that Scott Farquhar of Atlassian, right? He's on the board of.
I believe
he's part of the company. He's invested in it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get some questions from you in a second. So please put your hand up, and we'll get a microphone to you.
There's one here actually. This lady put her hand straight away. She's one I gave a hard time on Shark Tank, was it? No.
Hard time. So let's start with you. Thanks.
Hi, Steve. Emma from Mini Sand Crabs Kids Swimwear. What do you think the key to SEO is? Is it something that you can give us any advice on as business owners?
As in search engine optimization?
Correct.
Yeah, be careful because Google will always finish you off. I mean, it's probably not too bad because it's a bit like when it's a bit like the battle between the bullet and bulletproof vest, right? There's always competition there and it always changes. But I think you saw an example of that that issue with relying on the big techies with Unlocked, which is that Australian. Unlocked was it was a terrible idea, right? I've seen that 5 times in the past, and I always knew it was going to fall over exactly the same way. We used to see free dial-up and free web surfing and free phone calls, and it just doesn't work. The carriers shut you down. It happened again, but you're playing in their ecosystem, and they get to change the rules. So I don't follow SEO. I pay money to SEO people. Black magic, no idea. I think it works.
Thank you.
Another question. Do you see yourself as a game changer?
Yeah, I hope so. So
how do you see it?
I think we need to celebrate success. We need to lose some of our fears about success. I try and encourage people to start businesses and be successful. I hate social enterprise. I get pitched so many people, and mostly females, and stop it. Females, stop this. Mostly social enterprise charity type things, right? The world's best social entrepreneur is a guy called Bill Gates. He got filthy stinking rich, and now he's going to kill polio, he's going to kill AIDS, and he's going to cure starvation in Africa, right? He did that from a position of strength. And I have so much admiration for that. If you do it with a startup and you think you can do a half charity, half startup, half business, your charity will suck and your startup will suck. So I want to encourage people to get that, to be really successful, do good business. I'm not talking about making sarin gas and landmines. I'm talking about doing really good, honest business and do the right thing. But then do your charity from a position of strength, because it's far more important then. So, or far more sustainable then, I should say.
Yep. Question?
Hi, I'm Roxanne. I actually grew up in Longreach, so I
Hey.
appreciate the region, and you're actually going into there and sort of spreading the word. I guess my question is, what's holding us back in terms of the earliest or the newest company was Woolworths in Australia? What's holding Australia back?
About probably 4 billion years ago, we were formed with this amazing, just dizzying array of riches just below the surface. We're geopolitically stable. And every 15, 20 years, there's a commodity and currency prices make it, we can just tear the stuff out of the ground, have a great time and get lazy. That hasn't helped. We have, so that I think, traditional industries are so intoxicatingly profitable in their cycles. And so that keeps you focused on that. In the regions, which are the word I don't like using, but outside the capital cities, you actually have people using their isolation and their regional status as a crutch, which drives me insane. And we did our first regional tour with Mark Selby back in March last year, and a chap called Stephen Phillips came along, who had the business We Are Hunted. You should put him in this chair sometime as well. He's fantastic. And someone asked him, how can we run a business? How can we run a business out here? It's obviously we're a small area, and his response was he started his business with 3 programmers and a designer. Can't you find 3 programmers and a designer? And it was the best answer. It was like, you don't need much. So stop using it as a crutch, get on, and just do it.
Hi, Steve. I'm Jack. I'm a Year 12 student, and I'm just wondering, if you have any advice for like students or early uni students.
Yeah, learn as much as you can and do it when someone else is paying for it. So I encourage people to start a business as young as possible, and I'm probably got no discrimination there other than saying get your technical qualifications or experience behind you first. If someone can, if you can go to university and do IT or whatever your flavour of tech degree is, and then go and work for someone for a couple of years, maybe work for someone you think you're going to take on as a competitor, understand how they do business or how shittily they do business most likely, understand the opportunities and niches in there and get into it, but mate, jump in. Have fun. You're only young once, and as all us old people can tell you, it doesn't get any better. Enjoy the hell out of it, and make your mark in the world, and just do it in a way that you're proud to look at yourself in the mirror.
What are the biggest mistakes you've made?
You make so many. There's been no groundbreakers, luckily, if you know what I mean. So I get asked this question a lot, and I stumble over it. There's things I should have done this here or done that there. There's nothing, thankfully, that massive, in all truth, that I can, that are worthy even repeating, because they're just all minor stuff. We should have maybe not employed that person. We maybe should have done
that kind of thing. Yeah, but no big regret. There's no particular.
If you like who you are now,
yeah,
you can't have a regret. I mean, even if you don't, that's I sort of feel for that in some respects. So you go through your dark place, you go through your dark times. That's for sure. If you like where you are now, that was just what had to happen, right? You change one, the butterfly effect. Change one little thing, and that's it. Half your leg will fall off.
So if I asked a team member or team members to tell me about Steve, what do you think they'd say? Your team members.
He buys them lunch on Tuesdays.
Just get a bit deeper, will you?
I find it an awkward question to answer. What I'd hope they'd say is probably what I'd hope they say is that I'm fair. When I was in the services, there was nothing worse than someone who had command over you who had a bit of a split personality. You didn't one day you didn't know what you had to do to actually be in their good books. And I found that to be they were the worst days. So hopefully we set up an environment where people know how to do their job. We employ the people who can do their job. They know how to do their job. They get given stretch goals. They get communicated. So I hope hopefully that that they had a job, that I gave them a job they absolutely bloody loved.
Good.
To be honest.
Good. Another question? It's hard to see you from here.
Hi, I'm Bronwyn from Hypersonics. I went to school in Rockhampton as well. We're starting a tech startup for satellite launching, and we're going to start with crowdfunding. Do you think this is a good idea?
For a tech startup?
Yeah.
In what space?
Satellite launching.
Satellite launching?
Yes.
Was that what you said?
Yes.
Oh, right. Are you Gilmore or something? Not Gilmore? Or
no, we're Hypersonics. So it's using scramjet tech from UQ.
Are you going to crowdsource the equity or crowdsource something else?
Crowdsourcing the flyback test from. So
you're going to sell the service for crowdsourcing. Yeah, look, if people buy it, I think it's good. If people don't buy it, I think it was the wrong idea. So, which is not a flippant answer. Like I actually, so I actually get pitched a little bit on the street nowadays, and in Qantas lounges and on aircraft, people say, I've got this idea. And the first thing I say is, that's a good idea, you should do it. And I say, but I didn't tell you the idea. And so what makes you think I've got a say in how good your idea is? The only person who gets a say in how good your idea is the person who pulls this out and actually pays for something. So you've got to get your idea into action as fast as you possibly can, because it could be the best idea ever. And it's the customers who actually get to tell you that, not at least one crusty old bloke up on, because he's actually pretty good for his age. He told me before. not some crusty old bloke up on stage. So I'd actually love to hear about your rocket stuff, to be honest, at some point in time.
Right, straight after this.
Yep.
We'll do that. Any final question? Just last question? Please thank Steve Baxter. Steve.
Thank you. Cheers. Sit back over there? Or?
Stay there.
Steve, the Queensland Business Leaders Hall of Fame was established to celebrate our great business leaders and entrepreneurs, and when you look around Queensland and you look at Queensland's history, one thing stands out, I think, more in Queensland than in any other state in Australia, and that is the number of the great businesses that have been created throughout the country of Queensland. So from Qantas, MIM, Mackay Sugar, Bundaberg Rum, John Moffat, the great mining entrepreneur of North Queensland, the O'Brien family, the Wagner family, the McDonald family, James Tyson, one of the greatest beef barons Australia's ever seen, the Burns-Philp business, William Knox Darcy, one of the most extraordinary entrepreneurs ever to live. And I think there's something in common about Queensland and entrepreneurs. We've never had the capital base, but we've always had the opportunities, and we've had the entrepreneurs who've stepped up to take advantage of the opportunities. And I think what you've demonstrated tonight is another remarkable story of a country born and bred Queenslander who's making an incredible difference with startups and building an entrepreneurial culture. And I think everybody here would be mightily impressed with what they've heard tonight. One of the things that we always see with entrepreneurs, or I always see and look for in entrepreneurs, is that entrepreneurs see things that others don't, or at least they see them before others do. And I think your remark when you said, I knew instantly that the world was going to change, is a real lesson for those of us who are hoping to build something. You know, it's not just an idea, but it's actually seeing something that others haven't seen the opportunity and seizing it. And I think it was clear from that moment in time that your business career took off. And I think if we look through the whole of your conversation tonight, you continue to see things that others don't. From the possibility of flying cars, and most of us just see that with great scepticism. You know, those of my age, we look at it and we say, well, how's it ever going to work? You know, well, you started to describe how it would work, and you compare it with driving down the freeway, and I think that was a salutary lesson. But also the network up the coast. Nobody here would know or understand that, but you just see it so clearly. And I think, you know, to me, that's the great lesson from tonight, you know, that wonderful entrepreneurs such as yourself, they see things, they see it so clearly, they see it before others, and then they make it happen. Just as importantly as your own business success, I think what we really should acknowledge as well is the fantastic promotion of entrepreneurship that you've really committed your life to, and fostering an innovative culture throughout Australia and parochially within Queensland. And I say it's no surprise that you were appointed the Chief Entrepreneur of Queensland, and in my terms, you've become our entrepreneur's entrepreneur. So ladies and gentlemen, would you thank Steve very much for a wonderful interview. Of course, this wouldn't be possible without the wonderful contribution of Ray, and I think it's fair to say Ray is the best business interviewer in Queensland. Absolutely, no doubt, Ray, and thanks for wonderful. No disrespect to the media, but without question, Ray, you're the star of Queensland in that space. For those of you who'd like to revisit the conversation or share it with friends, share it in your workplace, the webcast will be available on the State Library site next week. Tonight would not also be possible without the generous support of our sponsors, remarkable sponsors. And we acknowledge Pitcher Partners as our principal sponsor, who've just joined this year, and thank them for their generous support. A great Queensland business supporting startups, medium-sized and small businesses throughout Queensland, and we're very grateful to Pitcher Partners, as we are to Channel 7, which, for those who know history, know that that was a a Brisbane-based business, and it served Queensland for 50 or 60 years. We also thank Morgans, which is a great Queensland business supporting Queensland's entrepreneurs. NAB, which is really the oldest bank in Queensland, taking over from the Queensland National Bank, and RACQ, which for over 100 years has been supporting Queenslanders on the roads and in many other ways. I'd like to invite you to the next Game Changers conversation, which is on the 16th of August. It'll be a completely different tone, but a fascinating story nevertheless. It'll be an interview with Lydia Pearson, the co-founding partner and designer of one of Australia's most successful international fashion labels, Easton Pearson. I just remind you about the Hall of Fame induction dinner. It's going to be a special night. I can assure you some remarkable and surprising inductees. It's our 10th anniversary. It's always a great occasion, 19th of July at the Convention Centre, and we hope you could join us. Check the Hall of Fame website or the State Library website for details and for tickets. In the meantime, can I invite you to join us on the Queensland Terrace for refreshments, supported by our generous sponsors Cloverley Estate and Newstead Brewing Company. And might I add, if you go into the State of Origin on Sunday, you'll be served VB, I shudder to say. But I would encourage you, before entering the stadium, to take some fine Queensland beverage at the Newstead Brewing Company in Castlemaine Street. But in the meantime, you can enjoy some out on the terrace. Thank you very much for coming. We look forward to seeing you on the next occasion.